enthusiasts. Welcome to today's lesson on the fascinating world of verbs. Verbs are the heartbeat of any sentences, bringing it to life by expressing an action, states, and occurrences. But did you know that there are different kinds of verbs? For today's lesson, we'll tackle about the 6 different types of verbs. So, let's get started! Now, before anything else, let's start with our learning objectives, whereas we aim to identify the different types of verbs, understand the function of each type of verbs, apply knowledge of verbs in sentences, analyze sentence structure, and lastly, enhance sentence construction skills. At this juncture, let's explore the 6 types of verbs, namely the transitive verbs, intransitive verbs, the transitive verbs, intensive verbs, complex verbs, and lastly we have the prepositional verbs. First up, we have transitive verbs. A transitive verb requires a direct object to complete its meaning. The direct object is the noun or pronoun that receives the action of the verb. Say for example, in the sentence, she ate the cake. Now the verb in that sentence transfers the action to the direct object, making the sentence complete. Without the object, the sentence wouldn't make sense. For instance, we would just write, she ate. Now it leaves us wondering, she ate what? The direct object, cake, completes the thought of the sentence, whereas she ate the cake. Another example for this is, he wrote a letter, as well as the dog chased the ball. Now here's some more examples for transitive verbs. We have here, he wrote a letter, where wrote is the verb and letter is the object that is acted upon. As well as I've mentioned earlier, the dog chased the ball, where chased is the transitive verb and ball is the object in that sentence. Next, we have intransitive verbs. These verbs do not require a direct object. The action is complete in itself. Say for example, in the sentence, she laughed loudly. Laugh is an example of intransitive verb because it doesn't need an object to make sense. We have to take note that intransitive verbs can stand alone, describing actions or states that are self-contained. Now let's have some more examples. They arrived is complete on its own. Adding at the station provides more detail, but it is not necessary for the verb arrived to make sense. Another one is that the baby cried all night, whereas cried is an intransitive verb, and that verb can stand alone, where it can actually conveys meaning. Moving on to the transitive verbs. Now these verbs take 2 objects, namely the direct object and the indirect object. The indirect object receives the action indirectly, while the direct object is now keep in mind that the transitive verbs often involve giving or providing something to someone. For instance, in the sentence, she gave him a gift, him is the indirect object receiving the gift, and gift is the direct object being given. Now let's have some other examples. Say for example, in the sentence, he sent her a letter. Sent is the transitive verb, her is the indirect object, and letter is the direct object. Now this is the same with the sentence, they offered the team a trophy. Offered is the transitive verb, team is the indirect object, and trophy is the direct object in that given sentence. Now, let's talk about intensive verb. It is also known as linking verbs. Now these verbs connect the subject to additional information such as a complement or a descriptor. Now in the given example here, he is a teacher. Is functions as an intensive verb where it links the subject he to the complement teacher. Now we have here some other examples. In the sentence, the flowers smells or smell wonderful. Smell is an intensive verb linking the subject flowers to the adjective wonderful, as well as in the sentence they became friends, where became links the subject they to the complement friends. Now became here functions as an intensive verb. Take note that intensive verbs link the subject to a description or identity rather than showing action. Again, in the given example, he is a teacher, links he to teacher, giving more information about the subject. Next, we have complex transitive verbs. These verbs combine an action with a description or state of being, often including adjectives or noun complements. Now, in the given example, we have here in the sentence, he found the movie boring. Found here is the action, and boring is an adjective describing a movie. Now let's have some other examples. In the sentence, she considered the proposal valid. Considered here functions as a complex transitive verbs, and valid is the adjective modifying the noun proposal. This is the same with the subject or the sentence, they made the task easier, whereas made is the complex transitive verb, and easier is the adjective that modifies task. Now take note that complex transitive verbs add depth to sentences by combining actions with descriptive details. Again, in the given example, he found the movie boring. Found is the action, and boring describes the movie, adding more context and meaning. Lastly, we have prepositional verbs. Now these verbs combine with a preposition to form a phrase that conveys a specific meaning. Now, the preposition is necessary to complete the meaning. Say for example in the sentence, she looks after her younger brother. Now here, looks after is a prepositional verb with after being the preposition that completes the action. Now, let's have some other examples. Here, in the sentence, he fell behind in his studies. Fell behind is a prepositional verb, and behind gives it additional meaning. Now, this is the same with the sentence, they decided on the menu, whereas decided on is a prepositional verb, and on completes the action. All in all, we can say that prepositional verbs use prepositions to form phrases with unique meanings, often altering the verb's basic sense. Again, in the sentence look after or the phrase look after means to take care, which is different from just look. Now let's have a summary of the given topics. Transitive verb has a structure of a subject, verb, and the direct object. Intransitive verb, on the other hand, just composed of a subject and a verb. The transitive is composed of a subject, followed by a verb, followed by an indirect object, and followed by direct object. Now, intensive verb, on the other hand, is composed of a subject, verb, and a subject predicative. Next, we have a complex transitive verb. It is composed of a subject, a verb, and direct object, as well as an object predicative. Now, lastly, we have prepositional verb. It is composed of a subject, a verb, and lastly, we have it is composed of prepositional complement. Now that we have explored the type of verbs or the types of verbs, it's time to put your knowledge to the test. We've prepared an interactive activity for you to practice identifying and using these verbs in sentences. Now, this activity will be posted in our learning management system again into our Google Classroom, so make sure to log in, complete the exercise, and participate in the discussion boards to share your answers and insights with your classmates. Great job! Now you know the 6 types of verbs and how they function in sentences. Understanding these can greatly enhance your writing and communication skills. Stay tuned for our next video as we will explore the 8 parts of speech. keep learning, and see you next time!